not only another phase in a war that exists between the US and Iran, a proxy war, but also a new phase in Iraq with its own repercussions going forward. If you will permit me to, there's something I've been thinking about a lot, because Soleimani and the Iranian leadership had this vision of an axis of resistance. And it is true, there's a resistance in Palestine that they support. There's a resistance in Lebanon that they support. But there's a resistance in Syria and Iraq against Iran. There's even a resistance in Iran against this leadership. So there isn't one resistance here. So not only do we have state-state conflict going on, which is what you were asking about, but we have non-state actors against states. That includes terrorists, but that also includes protesters involved in these uprisings. So there's sort of three levels here. We talk about sometimes state on state, state on non-state, and non-state on non-state that's going on. And all three levels of that are about to get worse in Iraq. And it will only be over the longer term that Iraqis will work out a way to deal with each other and not making each other victims of a proxy war that is not their proxy war. We have excellent new reporting today coming out on the TikTok, on the step-by-step of the Trump decision-making process. For context, though, we must remember that Shia militias have been attacking American troops in Iraq since 2007. And since July of 2019, there have been 30 attacks on American forces in Iraq. So this is the context within which the latest happened. Last week, 30 missiles were shot at the K1 base in Iraq, which has started the latest back and forth. The U.S. responded by hitting the popular militias, 3 sites in Iraq and 2 sites in Syria, killing, I think, 25 Iraqi members of the militias, which led to the storming of the embassy and the burning of the front building of the U.S. embassy, which led to the decision that was made. Trump was originally offered the possibility of killing Soleimani when he arrived at the airport, a decision that both Obama had the opportunity to do and Bush had the opportunity to do, and decided that the consequences would be too great. And Trump said no on December 28th. But according to the latest reporting, the image of the U.S. embassy on fire, the perception by Trump that weakness towards Iran is what killed Jimmy Carter's presidency, that the attack in Beirut in 1982 severely damaged the U.S., that attack on the embassy, the U.S. mission in Libya in 2013 was the big negative moments for Obama and Clinton, the biggest tragedy of their presidency, and Trump wanting to avoid this. No, this is a war, as I'm saying, that already has existed since 2007 in terms of the American relationship with Iraqi Shias, and since July it has stepped up. We're already in a war, and we're also in a proxy war with Iran across the region, with things going on in Syria and Iraq, but also Yemen and in the Gulf, including the Iranian attack on the Saudi oil facilities, the downing of the unmanned drone, different things happening with ships in the Gulf. So we're already in a war. This is a new phase in a war that already exists, which is much, much worse. So what we plan to see going forward is attacks against American interests in Iraq, attacks against American interests probably after that in neighboring countries where Iran has allies that are willing to take actions. And we're talking about global attacks by Iranian agents over the larger term, using networks that already exist in Latin America, in West Africa. You may remember that there was an attempted attack here in Washington at Cafe Milano using Mexican drug cartels funded by the Iranians not too long ago, an attempt to kill the Saudi ambassador Jubeir. So these capacities have long existed for Iran, and we expect the whole network that Soleimani put together, now in his death, being operationalized to take the types of actions that Soleimani always was preparing to happen. Now we know that Iran sees all of this as defense. It sees it as resistance. But other countries, including the United States, see it as offensive, just like American actions in Iraq, which is seen as defensive against attack on an embassy that's coming, is seen as offensive by the other side and an affront to Iraqi sovereignty, but also an attack on Iran.
We have to remember that the attacks that Iran has made so far, it has always denied responsibility. Attack on Saudi, attack on tankers, it has always, even the attack on the U.S., the K-1 base that killed the American contractor. Iran denied any responsibility for that. Why? This is a very interesting question. Why? Clearly, for Iran, they don't want to be caught in taking what we call bellicose steps against the U.S.